All right, we'll call this, ooh, that's loud. We'll call this general committee meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. We'll start with land acknowledgement.
We acknowledge that we gather on the traditional and treaty territories of the Williams Treaties First Nations, including Nishnawbe peoples of Hiawatha, Curve Lake, Alderville, Beausoleil, Jordina Island, Rama, and the Mississaugas of Skugog Island. For generations, the Michisagi Nishnawbe have cared for these lands and waters, guided by knowledge, ceremony, and responsibility. We recognize the ongoing impacts of these treaties, the injustices that occurred, and the enduring strength and resurgence of Indigenous communities. As we live and work here, we commit to reflection, respect, and meaningful action in the spirit of reconciliation.
We now stand for the singing of the national anthem. Oh, sorry. And the Council of the City of Peterborough recognizes the principles contained in our Constitution and the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. We'll now take 30 seconds to reflect. Please stand for the singing of the national anthem. Strong and free from we stand on our body. All right, Mayor Leal, you want to make some comments?
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. I want to say on behalf of all our colleagues, our senior staff, the staff of the City of Peterborough, indeed the citizens of Peterborough, that we express our sincerest condolences to Richard, to you and your family on the passing of your mother. We do know during life that mothers and sons have a very special and unique relationship. And I know from the brief conversations over my time here that I had with you, I can say that you and your mother had a very special relationship. So on behalf of us all, it's a great loss. It'll be a great void in your life and your family. And again, on behalf of all of us, our sincerest condolences.
Thank you, Mayor Leal. All right, adoption of minutes from February 17th, 2026. Moved by Councillor DeGay. Any comments or questions, errors or omissions? We'll take a vote. Councillor Pernell, yay. And I would point out that Councillor Lachika is attending virtually this evening. So Councillor Lachika is with us virtually, and Councillor Hakey has sent his regrets. And that is carried. Mr. Clerk, any disclosure of pecuniary interest?
Mr. Chair, I see none at this time.
All right, so we have 4 consent items coming out of closed session. So the first consent item, proposed land acquisition, that council approve the recommendation outlined in report LSRS 26-008 dated April 13th of the Commissioner of Legislative Services as follows. That respecting the proposed land acquisition, staff be directed to proceed as outlined in closed session report LSRS 26-008 dated April 13th, 2026 of the Commissioner of Legislative Services. The second item, consent item coming out of enclosed, encroachment, that council approve the recommendation outlined in report LSRS 26-009 dated April 13th, 2026 of the Commissioner Legislative Services as follows. That respecting a proposed encroachment, staff be directed to proceed as outlined in closed session report LSRS 26-009 dated April 13th, 2026 of the Commissioner Legislative Services. Our third consent item out of closed, city land, that council approve the recommendation outlined in report LSRS 26-011 dated April 13th, 2026 of the Commissioner of Legislative Services as follows. A, that the portion of city-owned lands adjoining 711 Chamberlain Street as described in Appendix B to report LSRS 26-011 be declared surplus. B, that the notice requirements as adopted in the city's real property management policy be waived. C, that staff be authorized to proceed as outlined in closed session report LSRS 26-011 dated April 13th, 2026 of the Commissioner of Legislative Services. And the fourth consent item coming out of closed, donation, that council approve the recommendation outlined in report LSOCS 26-015 dated April 13th, 2026 of the city solicitor as follows. That staff be directed to proceed as outlined in closed session report LSOCS 26-015 dated April 13th, 2026 of the city solicitor respecting second estate donation. Now we do have 4 items coming out of closed. So the first item, lands. Councillor Burke, did you want to make some comments?
Chair Beamer, thank you. Through you, I'd like to move the report, and I'd like to move the option in the report that follows. And that option be that A, the property known municipally as 705 Sherbrooke Street be declared surplus and be sold at $410,000 to One City Community Development Services, and the city provide a vendor take-back mortgage in the amount of $200,000 to secure the principal under the terms of the Affordable Housing Facility Agreement, and to be fully forgivable at the end of the 20-year term subject to compliance with such terms. And B, that each the mayor, clerk, commissioner, legislative services, and manager realty services, or any one or more of them, be authorized to execute such documents to give effect to the proposed transactions on terms acceptable to the said commissioner and in forms acceptable to the city solicitor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Burke. Moved by Councillor Burke. Any comments or questions? We'll take a vote. So Pernell's a yay. That is carried. Our second item coming out of closed session, donation, that council approved the recommendation outlined in report LSOCS 26-013 dated April 13th, 2026 of the city solicitor as follows. That staff be directed to proceed as outlined in closed session report LSOCS 26-013 dated April 13th, 2026 of the city solicitor respecting estate donation. Moved by Councillor Crowley. Any comments or questions? All right, we'll take a vote. Councillor Pernell's a yay. And that is carried. Our third item coming out of closed litigation, that council approved the recommendation outlined in report LSOCS 26-014 dated April 13th, 2026 of the city solicitor as follows. That staff be directed to proceed as outlined in closed session report LSOCS 26-014 dated April 13th, 2026 of the city solicitor respecting tax exemption application. Moved by Councillor Reel. Any comments or questions? We'll take a vote. Councillor Purnell, are you a yay? Councillor Purnell's a yay. That is carried. And our last item coming out of closed session this evening, plan that council approve the recommendation outlined in report CSSS 26-005 dated April 13th, 2026 of the Commissioner of Community Service as follows. That staff be authorized to proceed as outlined in closed session report CSSS 26-005 dated April 13th, 2026 of the Commissioner of Community Services. Moved by Councillor Reel. Comments or questions? Take a vote. Councillor Purnell's a yay. That is carried. All right, everyone, we'll move to our consent agenda. Please let me know if you'd like to speak to any of the following items. 14A, budget amendment and award of RFQ 1326 City Hall generator full integration. Anyone wishing to speak to that? 14B, development charge reserve funds 2025 annual report. Anyone wishing to speak to that? Seeing none. 14C, extension of sponsorship agreement with the Bench Press. Anyone wishing to speak to that? Seeing none. 15A, designation of 123 Simcoe Street. Anyone wishing to speak to that? Seeing none. 15B, designation of 172 and 174 Simcoe Street. Anyone wishing to speak to that? Councillor Burke. 13C, notice of objection, 310, 314 George Street North. Anyone wishing to speak to that? Seeing none. 15D, development charges for 280 Jameson Drive. Anyone wishing to speak to that? Seeing none. 13A, contract extension for Selwyn Link bus service. Anyone wishing to speak to that? Mayor Leal. All right, up for consent this evening, we have 14A, 14B, 14C, 15A, 15C, 15D. Moved by Councillor Vassiliadis. We'll take a vote. Councillor Purnell's a yay.
No.
And that is carried. So we do have one public meeting under the Planning Act this evening. So I'll pass it over, I think, to the Chair of Planning, Councillor Purnell. Thank you, Councillor Purnell.
Thank you. I just don't have eScribe. IT's trying to help me out here. But we will proceed with the planning meeting under the Planning Act. And this is a zoning bylaw amendment for 349 Park Hill Road East. And we actually... Okay, and Ms. Gilbertson is at the podium to do the staff presentation. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Council. I'm here this evening to present to you the staff report for 349 Park Hill Road East. It is a zoning bylaw amendment. The owner of the property is Maloney Project Development Corporation. The applicant is Brian Bouchard of Land Design. The property is approximately 3.7 acres in size with a frontage along Park Hill Road East of 51 meters. Currently, the property is zoned for a 3-story, 55-unit residential apartment building, And the proposed use before you today is for a 6-story, 75-unit apartment building. The property is on Park Hill Road East, adjacent to the canal, just west of the Warsaw Swing Bridge. We have Curtis Pond further to the east, and then Curtis Creek traverses under the canal and crosses the property on the, I guess, southern half of it. There are trails in the vicinity associated with the canal property. We have Woodbine Avenue to the south, Juliet Road, and Swanson curving around to the west. Just another view of the property showing it's quite a large property. This is what you would see generally driving by the location today, maybe with a bit more foliage. We have the top photo on the right-hand side is the view towards the swing bridge. The middle photo is of the apartment buildings across the road. And then the final photo is of the properties to the west. Today, the property is zoned R5 with the exception, which would allow the 3-story 55-unit build. The property also has an open space zone associated with it, as there is the Curtis Creek that traverses the property, as well as associated valley lands and woodlands associated with it. The property is designated neighborhoods in the official plan, as well as natural areas. The proposal is to amend the zoning bylaw to tweak the existing exception 340 to allow the 6-story 75-unit building. There are modifications proposed to the base zoning district that would allow the building to locate on site. So we're providing relief for side lot lines and rear lot lines. A slight reduction in the lot area per dwelling unit requirement, some modifications for the parking lot design and layout, as well as a reduction in one of the required parking spaces. For your benefit, this is the conceptual site plan that was submitted as part of the application, showing the location of the building on the property close to Park Hill Road and adjacent to the canal, with the parking on the west side and to the rear. It's important to note that where the developable area is proposed is outside of the natural feature, as well as the natural hazard associated with Curtis Creek, which is a slope affiliated with the creek feature. Just another conceptual site plan, just zoomed in a little bit more to show the layout of the building and parking and landscaping. The applicant, who is here this evening, along with the project architect, Neil Campbell, prepared these conceptual renderings of the proposed build. And so you can see them on the screen there. And there's also the views from the parking lot. So this is south, looking in the northeasterly direction. And then, of course, from the canal pathway. And this is from the Warsaw Swing Bridge and from across the way on the canal. This application was reviewed against all of the provincial requirements, as well as our municipal requirements of the official plan and our strategic plan. And staff have determined that it is supported by the policy. The applicant circulated a project information letter prior to submitting their application in 2024. And the concerns that were submitted by the neighboring property owners were summarized and addressed in their submission to the city, which they submitted about a year ago this month. Some of the concerns that were identified included traffic, landscaping, fit of the proposal within the neighborhood, as well as privacy. Notice of this application was circulated in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act. Notice was provided to all property owners within 120 meters. A sign was posted to the on site. We also had this on our website and in the newspaper. As of the time of preparing the presentation, I had not received any formal comments from the public. However, council is in receipt of a letter of concern from a member of the public late this afternoon, highlighting concern about the location of the building relative to the creek, as well as matters pertaining to traffic along Park Hill Road East. The staff recommendation remains to rezone the property and to address the modifications needed in the existing exception 340. There's also a requirement to slightly tweak the limits of the open space district to align with the ground truth technical studies that were submitted as part of this application. And by approving this application, this would facilitate a 6-story, 75-unit residential apartment building. And with that, I will answer any questions that council may have.
Thank you, Christy. I have two councillors who have questions at this point, actually 3 now. Councillor Riel, you're first.
Through the chair to Ms. Gilbertson, thank you very much for being here. Can you tell me the reasoning why the city wants this proponent to build the asphalt sidewalk, the complete distance of most of Park Hill Road East? They're amenable to building a sidewalk in front of their property, which is 170 meters, I believe, but the 500 and some meters plus meters, they have a problem with why they should have to build a city sidewalk.
Through the chair to the councillor, yes, there is a missing sidewalk connection in the vicinity of this property. So I have a supplementary slide up here for your benefit, showing that essentially from the Warsaw Swing Bridge over to in front of 309 Park Hill Road East, there's no sidewalk. It's just, I don't even think there's a curb and gutter there. The reason that staff is making this recommendation is it was the interest of council when this was originally rezoned in 2021 to request this of the applicant, because at the time there was the need to ensure that there's some form of transit connection and pedestrians supporting this development. With no sidewalk, essentially, if you don't have a vehicle, there is a bit of a risk for pedestrians to walk along the connection to the nearest transit stop. So planning staff thought it was amenable to make this request so that we could tie the development to the broader pedestrian network, transit network, etc.
Through the chair to Ms. Gilbertson, any idea what the cost is for this?
Through the chair, it's my understanding through the concurrent site plan application that cost estimates were provided as part of that. I may have to rely on my director because I believe he's looked at the site plan application aspect of this, which did have the cost estimates provided.
Thank you. Director Appleby, please.
Madam Chair, I will perhaps allow the applicant to correct me down when they have the opportunity to come up and speak. But some of the numbers I looked at show approximately $67,000 just for the asphalt and granular alone, and then presumably there'll be some additional costs associated with prepping the ground for that walkway as well.
Thank you. Councillor Duguay, please.
Thank you, Chair Purnell. Mrs. Gilbertson, thank you for your thorough presentation. Can you call up the detailed concept plan for a moment? Thank you. I'd also like to thank staff and the proponent for the renderings, very helpful. I should have asked you this earlier prior to today's meeting. I noticed that the designated parking spaces are on the opposite side of the drive aisle. Through site plan, would there be any opportunity to have those parking spaces configured so they're adjacent to the west limit of the building?
Through the chair to Councillor Dugay, this application has been circulated concurrently for site plan and zoning bylaw. We've had accessibility staff review the proposal and the location. Due to the grading of the site, this was the best location for these accessible parking spaces, and the applicant may be able to provide a bit more detail pertaining to that matter, but it was my understanding that this was the best location, because otherwise it would be challenging for people to maneuver up the grade into the building.
That explanation is satisfactory. I don't think I'll need to inquire the developer. Madam Chair, I have a second question. The previous development permitted 3 stories, 55 units. Was the building coverage greater than the current proposal or equivalent, or do you know that?
Through the chair, if there was a shift, it would be marginal. What I'm seeing in the draft zoning bylaw is a relief for parking coverage. So my recall is that that's because it complies with the R5 base zoning district.
Thank you, Mrs. Gilbertson. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Burke, your turn.
Chair Parnell, thank you. Can you just remind me before I start, please, do we have unlimited questions with staff?
2
We have-
accuses and questions and approximately 90 seconds to answer.
Oof, okay. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Gilbertson, appreciate it. I guess my understanding of the original application is that it wasn't that it was determined in 2021 that a sidewalk needed to be built. There was just a hold put on that part of the plan because that was something that had yet to be figured out. That's more of a statement than a question, but that's my understanding. So I guess my first question is, who owns the open space adjacent to Trent Canal?
Through you, Madam Chair, to the councillor, it's Parks Canada.
Okay. And then, so we're asking the proponent to build a sort of temporary asphalt, what some would call a sidewalk. Would that not be, and help me if I'm naive to this, please, but would that not be something that would typically be covered through the development charges? How much are the development charges for this project?
Ms. Gilbertson, please.
Through you, Madam Chair, I believe the development charge summary is in the staff report on page 17. And pardon me while I read quickly. So it's saying that there would be a generation of approximately 3.3 million in city development charges for this property.
Okay, so we're asking for $3.3 million in development charges. And we're also asking for the proponent to build what some would think of as municipal infrastructure at a cost of around $60,000. I can't ask another question, but thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you, Ms. Gilbertson.
Thank you.
So we do have 2 delegates registered this evening to speak to the application, Mr. Brian Bouchard and then Mr. Neil Campbell. Mr. Bouchard, please join us at the podium, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A lot of familiar faces around here, a few new ones. It's been 4.5 years since I retired from the city of Peterborough. It's been quite a journey. I wanted to thank Christy for a very thorough report. It really touched on all the bases, and of course, her presentation was excellent. I wanted to introduce the developer, Glenn Maloney of Maloney Project Development. He's sitting in the gallery. As well, we have Neil Campbell, president of Aside Architects, here with us this evening. It's been quite a journey for this building, actually. I think it started in 2018 when I was still with the city of Peterborough. I went to a public information session at the Rugby House at Nichols Oval Park when Greg Gordon was the project architect. At that time, it was a 3-story, 55-unit building. Glenn Maloney gave me a call. Subsequent to that, around the time the new official plan was enacted, and he said to me, "Brian, I think we can build a bigger building there, maybe with more units." Well, we got to work on that right away, and it proved to be fruitful. Unfortunately, however, Greg passed away. Very sad news. And that being the case, we had to find another project architect, and we took on Neil Campbell of Aside Architects, who, being two minds being better than one, had improved upon the building tremendously. That took us to a third iteration. We found that there was pretty high groundwater table situation there that took us to a fourth iteration, and that's the building we have before us today. Just wanted to, excuse me a moment. I think at this point in time, we'll have Neil come forward and talk a little bit about the building. And if I can finish up after that, Madam Chair, would that be permissible?
Okay, we'll go with that, and we'll save the questions to the end.
Okay, thank you. Neil?
Tandem delegation.
Good evening. My name's Neil Campbell, principal of Aside Architects. We're just down the street here, local firm in Peterborough area. We focus on multi-unit residential housing. So as Brian Bouchard mentioned, we assumed the project after Greg Gordon's passing. He had done a lot of good work, so it made for a very easy start. It was living between a couple different planning regimes with a number of different comments that had occurred over the years. So our first effort was to round up all those comments, and we cycled through the planning department a number of times. We met with many planning staff. We literally it was a very collaborative effort in order to acknowledge the comments, address different directions, and so forth, and arrive at a project that seemed to satisfy all the concerns that had been tabled. So one of the things I want to go over, we've gone from 55 units to 75 units, and we've gone from 3 stories to 6 stories. A couple things, the suites themselves have grown a bit in size. There are mostly 2 bedrooms. We have 48 2-bedroom units. They're generous. Almost all of the suites have either Juliet balcony or an inset balcony, which we felt was very appropriate given what is an exceptional site. I'll share with you one of the moments that every architect has the first time they see any site. Often they can be irregular. The first thing jumping off the page is all the challenges. This one, the first time I visited the site, this is an exceptional site by any standard in any city, in any town. It is so good to see this number of residential units that are going to be arriving beside the canal. The scale of the canal itself really prompts a larger building. I think a 3-story building, partly because of the slope off of the canal, that buffer that Parks Canada has, it would have been diminutive, and I think a lot of those units would have been looking out into the hills. So the basement or the lowest floor of this building is all utilities. It's mechanical rooms, it's garbage, it's generous bike rooms and so forth. And then as we climb upwards, it's all residential. So a couple of things. Urbanistically is where we started. That was where a lot of the comments were coming from planning. You're familiar with a lot of these issues that have been well articulated in the design guidelines. The effort to hold the street. So a street face that wasn't plain, that was activated, and that held the corner. This is whenever you have a bridge condition, whenever you're coming and going across a bridge, that corner property is very key. It sort of it welcomes somebody into that next neighborhood. And so we broke up the massing of the building, not through shape, but through color and materiality. We're looking at a pre-engineered system that's going to have a masonry look to it. And so the front part of the building that holds the corner is all a darker masonry, and it'll hold that corner as you come across the bridge. The other thing that we did that was I think it's quite successful, is the whole ground floor across the entire frontage of Park Hill is either the indented covered entrance and lobby, or a very generous amenity room that looks out onto Park Hill. So that's and then there's a terrace off of that amenity room that looks out towards the canal to the east. So again, I'd mentioned that the building is now operating at the scale of the canal, which I think is healthy. We worked considerably on the materiality. So given a relatively large building, even though this is really classified as the missing middle, the sort of 2 stories to 6 stories, we broke it up with a number of color strategies and rhythms of the windows and so forth. So we've shared with you a number of 3D images. We invite you to sort of look through them, but we think it's quite successful. The other piece, as I'd mentioned, we're looking at a pre-engineered system for this. So if this does proceed through the rezoning and the site plan approval, the building permit process, the other end of that, I think construction can move quicker than most projects of this scale. So that it brings 75 units, or as it was mentioned in the report, 1.6% of your targeted goals for 2031, I believe it was. So anyway, I'm available for any questions, and thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell and Mr. Bouchard. I have one hand up so far. Councillor Baldwin has a question.
So thanks, Madam Chair. I guess this would go to Mr. Campbell, if I could. When you say engineered construction, would that be similar to the new building that we put up at the corner of McKellar and Monaghan Road, a building like that?
Correct. Yes. It's that company, which was Skyrise Construction, does a CFS panel with the Stowe system. That's a European system. And it was fabricated, I believe, in the Pickering Ajax industry. That firm has since gone, being a European firm, they've removed that operation from their holdings, and the people that operated the facility have set up again under the moniker Next Prefab. So we're working with them on a number of buildings, and we have talked to them with regards to this. It hasn't been finalized or anything, but it's got a lot of advantages: cost containment, quick schedule for build, sound transmission classes. It's just solid construction. So.
And the second question, Madam Chair, through you is, Mr. Campbell, you referenced kind of a quick build. So what are we looking at? A year and a half to 2 years to start to finish?
Yeah, it's always difficult, my answer is speaking for the builder. So I don't want to put words in their mouth, but we have 3 multi-unit residential projects underway right now. One's a 3-story ICF 41-unit building, and the timeline for construction on that from beginning and end is 28 months. Long time. Yeah, so this one, it would definitely shave considerable time off of that and yet deliver almost twice as many units. So
those are all my questions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Crawley and then Councillor Duguay. You have the floor.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Thank you so much for coming tonight. I have a quick question, and I'm not sure if one of you can help. Just a simple question. I know that we're talking about, climate change 2.0 and stuff like that. Is there any opportunity to add a couple of EV charging stations to this build? Is that something that's possible? Is something you've looked at? What's your thoughts on that?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. That's something that was considered, and we talked to Glenn Maloney about that. He says that it can be accommodated in the future, but not as part of this immediate build.
So you could set up the through you, Chair. Sorry, you could set up the infrastructure to allow for that to happen in the future, once the building is completed. It's something that's an option down the road.
So the biggest consideration around setting up for EV chargers, there's two. One is making sure that you have the servicing and that can carry the loads.
Right.
So that's in place. And the other one is roughing in. Where it becomes a real challenge on some properties, if you have great distances to get to the parking lot, yeah, you should probably rough it in. On this particular, because it's a relatively long, narrow lot with the parking beside it, roughing in isn't the issue. So it's something that can happen down the road without any, a significant impact.
Excellent. All right. Thank you so much very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Councillor Duguay.
Thank you, Chair Parnell. Mr. Bouchard, welcome back. Madam Chair, my question of our project architect and project planner is this. I note there is a concurrent site plan application. That's my understanding. When would you anticipate the city approving the site plan?
Through you, Madam Chair, we are that close. I think the agreement is being drafted as we speak. There may have to be a revision to that draft concerning the walkway on Park Hill Road East, but we're virtually there.
Madam Chair, that is very encouraging. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Councillor Berg.
Chair Parnell, thank you. Through you to Neil. Question for you, Neil, please. Was there synergy with the design and the Parks Canada space with the trail along the canal, so that
So we had a number of discussions with them through Teams calls, and Brian was a part of those discussions as well. And it's I'm not sure I'd want to say synergy, but it's a review process that they conduct, and they want to make sure that it's sympathetic and simpatico with the canal, and they're fine with everything that we're presenting.
Just where I'm getting at is you see these like man-made paths that exist around planning sometimes that happen where it more directly reflects how people are accessing the land as opposed to how it's designed sometimes. And it seems to me that the building being built on the west side, it sort of allows some openness to the canal side with the trail. Is there a potential to have some connections if anything happens with the Parks Canada space?
I'm going to rephrase it just so we're on the same. So you're talking about actually making a physical connection with a pathway from the pathway beside the canal to the building itself. Yeah. Yeah. So we touched upon that. There was some reluctance on that. And I think part of it is, where does it begin and end? Where are the responsibilities for maintenance and so forth? And so the truth of it is there's such a strong access from the street, that sidewalk that's being discussed, that it went away fairly quickly, and they didn't see it as an important piece to how the canal pathway would operate. So
thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Okay, and I need a mover, and I believe Mayor Leal, you would.
Thanks very much, Madam Chair. I'd move A and B, and then I would add C, and I think the Deputy Clerk has C that we can put up in the screen. And C would read that through the site plan approval process, the developer only be required to construct the concrete walkway described in report IPGPL 26-023 across the frontage of 349 Park Hill Road East.
Thank you for the amendment and for providing it to the clerk. Sorry, sir. Yeah, it's working. Okay, so while the clerk is loading that onto the screen, we are to go to staff and ask for their opinion on what this amendment would do to the application. What would the consequence of this be, please?
Through the chair. So the concern is the fact that the sidewalk will be something that will be probably requested once occupancy of the building starts. From that perspective, with the absence of the sidewalk, the city will probably get requests in order to construct it, much like we've had in other areas. And then it will be the question of the response to those inquiries.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions on the amendment? Councillor Burke.
And my question is just to staff to sort of pick up where we left off with my earlier question, and help me if I'm really getting this off or wrong, or if there's a issue with how we can prescribe the development charges. But would it not make sense to use the development charges to build a proper sidewalk? Is that not what they're there for?
Commissioner?
Through the chair, the development charges are intended to build the permanent long-term fixture of the facility. The challenge we're faced with is that a proper and a full design of that portion of Park Hill Road East has not been completed at this point. It is in the transportation master plan, but it's cited as a longer term project, meaning 15 to 20 years out. So from that, any sidewalk that's built now would be considered a temporary, because unless we go ahead and do the full design, the probability of it fitting in and matching in with the ultimate design is limited. So therefore, the intent would be is when we build it and use the DCs that we're collecting to build the ultimate configuration, those DCs now are limited because we've used them to put in a temporary facility.
Yeah, I mean, I guess where I'm struggling with that is we're asking the proponent to build a temporary facility, and they probably have all the same responses to that as our own staff are having. So I like the amendment, Mayor Leo. Thank you for the amendment. And yeah, I think that this is a really great project. The speed in which it can be built. These developers are, from all that I've heard from people that have experienced them, are great developers in our city, and we're lucky to have them. And I'm glad to be able to support what they're trying to do with this by supporting this amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Duguay, please.
Thank you, Chair Parnell. With respect to his worship's proposed amendment, did we?
The clerk has taken down the full motion and is just going to put back up the amendment first to talk to that.
So with respect to the amendment itself, my review of the staff report, my visit to the site recently confirms the following: that the developer is prepared to convey to the municipality at their expense and cost lands for the future widening of Park Hill Road. Number one. Number two, they've indicated a willingness to extend and create a sidewalk link to the canal, which provides a very effective pedestrian connection to East City and beyond. They're willing to do that at their expense. Number three, Madam Chair, the notion of the sidewalk extension, thusly from the west limit of this property in a westerly direction, I think to roughly Snellgrove, it being considered by staff, meaning no disrespect to staff's position here, as a temporary fixture. But my review of our capital plan indicates we're not contemplating any improvements to that section of Park Hill Road for at least 10 years. Let's call it, say, 15. And thus, that temporary asphalt surface takes on a permanent responsibility. And in that instance, the developer should, if they were paying DC charges, the DC charge would go directly to that sidewalk program. But more importantly, we don't have a final design on Park Hill Road. We don't know what we're going to do with the road. Will it have bike lanes? Will it have a multi-purpose trail on one side? I do support the mayor's motion. Madam Chair, if this was a developer saying, I'm not going to put in any sidewalk of any kind, very different, but they're willing to put a sidewalk roughly 175 feet across the face of their property, and they're conveying lands to the future, widening of Park Hill Road. The cost I think it's unreasonable in this case that the developer be responsible for the cost of an installation of a unfinished section of sidewalk, which from my perspective is a city responsibility and not a developer's responsibility. And most importantly, Madam Chair, 75 dwelling units are being built on a Park Hill Road at a time where housing is a priority. We've heard from the developer's architect and planner that site plan is imminent, and thus we can look forward to construction. That is what is important. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Crowley, you're next, and then Councillor LaChica.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to Commissioner Nelson, just to pick up on what Councillor Burke talked about, with the $3 million in development charges that we're going to receive from this project, and understanding that that money is going towards the future widening of Park Hill Road, would it be possible to take $67,000 out of that and build an asphalt temporary sidewalk? We're not using the whole thing to, pay for a temporary actual sidewalk, but surely we could construct a temporary asphalt path. Would that be a possibility?
Commissioner, please.
Through the chair, anything's possible, whatever councils will. Again, time and money. Anything's possible with time and money. So I think staff's preference would be to get the facility built, because once occupants go in, they will be looking for some form of a facility. And one of the challenges of not building it is the fact that the portion of the walkway that the developer will build across their frontage will become orphaned. It will be a piece of sidewalk that will be difficult to maintain simply because there's no connecting link to it. The walkway along the edge of the canal currently is not maintained in the winter because it's not hard surfaced. The basically Parks Canada don't maintain it. The city doesn't maintain it. So that piece in front of the new development would be an orphan piece of sidewalk if it's not connected. As I say, it would be staff's preference to have that connection made. There, again, it could be the option of if basically it has to happen, then it will be city funds and the recognition that maybe some of those funds come from the DCs. The challenge being is the DCs are strained as well. Those DC monies that are being collected aren't solely collected just for roads. They're collected for a multitude of various aspects that support, all city functions, city services. But from that perspective, yeah, whatever councils will, that can be moved forward. And basically that sidewalk connection, the challenge is looking at it from a perspective of what is the most efficient way to get it installed and put in. It could be initiated that it becomes a city project to do. The challenge is with staff resources and funding available. When does that happen?
Through you, Councillor, just one quick question. So would this be the type of project that we would have to, would take place once the development is built, then it would go in, or could we revisit this once the building's developed, and then we can, as a council, decide whether or not to take $67,000 out and build a asphalt path? It's not something we need to decide now, correct?
Through the chair, my recommendation is if the project moves forward, the recommendation would be to start to try to, and there isn't the requirement for the developer to build, whether it's city funded, whether it's development funded, whoever, the recommendation would be to put in a project to initiate that installation of that connecting link. And again, the question would be seeking the funding and how it competes and compares with other city projects. But again, it would be from a perspective to have an answer for those questions when people start to occupy for down the road, when they're asking the questions about having a facility available to take them to transit and or connect them to the other city sidewalk sections.
Thank you. Councillor LaChica, your time is up here.
Thank you very much. Through you, Chair Parnell. I'd like to first of all thank Mr. Campbell, Mr. Bouchard, and Mr. Maloney for the teamwork that has taken place to envision something like this. I have to say, in going through the agenda, it was such a pleasing page to turn to land on something that has architectural and design attributes that are so pleasing, that the height and the massing, the natural features surrounding are all in alignment and complement each other. So thank you for all your work on this and for the description that you provided, particularly Mr. Campbell in your presentation. I just want to concur with some of the points made by previous councillors about development charges and how they apply and how we work with developers and negotiate something that makes sense and that follows a particular process and timeline and realism. As Councillor Duguay mentioned, and as we discussed in our meeting about this, the time that it may take for something more permanent to be put in place, things can shift and morph in that time period. This is something that the development charges, should apply to, and that the city should take the responsibility for in the circumstance. We are lacking a missing middle, and this is just a prolific design and offering to our city and community of new people that can occupy this. So I'm fully in support of the mayor's amendment and encourage us all to vote in that direction. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. So we are speaking to the amendment, and I have Mayor Leal, then Councillor Baldwin, and then Councillor Riel. Mayor Leal, you have the floor.
I'll wait, Madam Chair, till we come back to the hopefully, which will be the amendment motion.
Yes, sir. I noted. Councillor Baldwin, please, to the amendment.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. Certainly, I'll support the mayor's amendment. Question to Commissioner Nelson Blair. The developers that I know, they build things permanently. They don't put things in temporarily. So if we required the developer to put in this temporary walkway, who supervised that to make sure it's up to, temporary standards?
Through the chair, I will take this opportunity. I'll answer initially, and then I'll defer possibly to Director Appleby to augment. But basically, the drawings typically are prepared through the site plan if it was something that was required as part of it. And then there's a combination of typically the developer has an engineer of record for the project. They would oversee that construction and confirm that it's fabricated or basically built according to the design plans. And then typically there is also city staff construction inspectors that liaise with that engineer of record just to confirm that the city's getting basically what was proposed.
That's helpful. I guess the other thing I would say is that, if you've got a developer who's building a building and we're asking a developer to build a walkway or a pathway that's 485 feet long, and if there are adjacent properties going along that 485-foot stretch, are we asking the developer to have a conversation with, let's say there's 10 house owners along that way, or is that done by staff? And how does that work?
Through the chair, that would be a combination. Typically, again, the initial design, some of the preliminary design has been done already as part of the preliminary concepts. That being said, the intent would be is that the pathway will be constructed within the city right away. The question is in terms of working the grading out such that does it impact some of those private driveways as you indicated and some of the works there. So it would most likely be a combined effort between city staff and the developer's engineer of record to work with those property owners to determine would there be a need for some permissions to enter in order to grade back onto some of that private property. So typically, and again, it would be a perspective of, and as we say, it's a temporary. Yes, the intention is it will still form a viable path and a viable walkway for pedestrians in the foreseeable future.
So you,
Go
Madam
ahead.
Chair,
Sorry, proceed. I'm sorry.
the last question would be Blair. I've walked the property and I've walked from Armour Road and Park Hill up to the log. On the south side of Park Hill, there appears to be a lot of, you've described it as terrain there. Would there be a need to put any retaining walls along there? I know from Park Hill Road, some of those properties that I viewed, they kind of dip down. I'm just wondering how you go about making sure that the temporary structure is going to be safe. From my way of thinking, our staff has expertise in doing that. I'd feel a lot better if we were doing it, to be quite frank.
Through the chair, I believe the preliminary design did show at least one area that showed some retaining walls were required in order to make the grading work. Outside of that, I can't really speak a whole lot more to it, but I don't disagree. There are some grading challenges through there, and that there would be the expectation is there may have to be some additional infrastructure put in order to make the grades work.
Fair enough. So, Madam Chair, just to recap, I'll support the mayor's amendment. I'd like to support the build and have the developers build the structure and have our professional staff who do this on a day-to-day basis build the temporary sidewalk. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Speaking to the amendment, Councillor Riel.
Through the chair, I will be supporting the amendment. I'm just baffled by this argument we're making here. Here's a developer, a local developer, that's going to spend $40 million building a building. Then we're going to collect over $3 million in development charges, and we're arguing over a $60,000 sidewalk that we should be doing. It's a city infrastructure, has nothing to do with them. They have said we will put a sidewalk in our frontage. But the sidewalk that goes from there to Snellgrove or wherever it's going to should be a city responsibility. So here we are spending over an hour arguing about something that the city should have the responsibility for a developer, like I said, is going to spend $40 million building a building, and the city is going to collect over $3 million in development charges. Come on, let's get with the program here.
Okay, thank you to the amendment, because I would like to go to a vote on the amendment.
I piggyback on what the previous speaker said, and I agree. And I think what I'm remembering is the first budget I had as a counselor where we heard from our own staff that we don't even have enough money to support our basic infrastructure. Well, here we are, right? Here we are, because we have a beautiful project that should be supported by city infrastructure around it. And it's not just in front of where the building is going, it's that whole strip. And it would be great for us to be in a scenario where we get a project like this come to council that's going to radically redefine that and densify that area. And then we could step in as a city with those development charges to really do our part in and around it to make it function with the rest of the city. It's not an island. It's not an island. It needs to function like we've heard with bike lanes and bus stops and walking and transit. And I would love to be in a position someday as a councillor where this would just be an easy decision for us. Great project. We'll do our part. Call it a day.
Okay, thank you. I definitely think we flogged that one. We will go to a vote on the amendment, please. Okay, and that has passed unanimously. Thank you. Now we'll move to the main motion, and Mayor Leal would like to speak to the main amended motion.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks very much, Madam Chair. This is an excellent project, $40 million investment, 75 units, and I would certainly recommend to all members of council. This was a wonderful article that appeared in the business section of the Toronto Star on Saturday, April 4th, 2026. It's entitled, "Why Ontario's Housing Market Went Bust." It's a in-depth analysis of the particular challenges in the housing market today. And for us to hold up a project for, I don't know, 65,000, 75,000, 100,000, in light of what is happening in Ontario today, it's incumbent upon us to move this forward as quickly as we can. We also know now in the Ontario budget that was released a couple of weeks ago that the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, Minister Flack, has changed his target. At one time, the 1.5 million new units by 2031 was a hard target. He subtly added some language to the budget that now says it's a soft target. So we do know that housing starts in Ontario are down some 15% between 2025 and 2026. And that tells us that every opportunity that we have to move a project like this forward, we should. Full disclosure, I met with the Maloney brothers last week to discuss this particular project. And one of the things that I think that's really crucially important at this time, the Maloney Development Group, of course, hire local tradespeople. And this is a really critical time to keep carpenters, electricians, plumbers, etc., working because of the backdrop of the industry that we see it right now. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you. All very good points. Any other comments? So, Councillor Beamer, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just very quickly, I think it is important to point out that some developers currently are not developing in Peterborough and haven't been for the past few years for a variety of reasons, local and global. The Maloney brothers continue to develop in Peterborough. They have for years and years and years, and they continue to develop. One of my very first, when I was first elected, one of the first developments in North Crest Ward was a Maloney brothers development on Bernardo and George Street. And, you know, there was some questions of residents about that development around trees and buffers and landscape and other important aspects of that. The Maloney brothers did a fantastic job of holding several public meetings, listening to the residents and finding solutions. And I can tell you, not surprisingly, that development has been a massive success. It's a beautiful development, and the residents who live in the development love it, and the neighbors have no issues with it at all. So this is a very reputable, successful local developer, and their track record is spectacular. And we just thank them for continuing to develop in the city of Peterborough. And as Mayor Leal said, they do hire local contractors. So I'm looking forward to a unanimous vote, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further comments? Saying none, I will add my voice of support and thank the developer, the Maloney brothers, for having the confidence and continuing to invest in Peterborough housing, and Peterborough people. Thank you very much for bringing this to us, and I will call for a vote. And that is unanimous. Thank you very much. That concludes our planning. That concludes our planning meeting, and I'll turn it back over to Chair Beamer.
Thank you very much, Chair Purnell. So we have one presentation this evening, DEI progress update, and I believe starting it off is Ms. McFarland, Director. Oh, Director McFarland, did you have a few comments to start, or? And if not, Sally, welcome.
Okay, Ani, bonjour, good evening. I'm Reem Ali. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Advisor, or the DEI Advisor for the City of Peterborough. Thank you for the opportunity to be here with you today and to present you with a report on DEI progress updates at the City. Our approach to DEI work is long-term and systemic, and is focused on achieving sustainable growth and outcomes. When the City embarked on this journey, we planned for this work to address existing issues while also responding to new and emerging issues and changing circumstances over time. This is indeed the nature of DEI work. It is not a checkbox or a one-time task. Meaningful changes take time, and our focus continues to be on ensuring that the needle is moving in the right direction. We are proud of the significant progress that the city has made so far towards strengthening its DEI foundation to promote an inclusive workplace, enhance community well-being, and align with best practices in the municipal sector. I want to acknowledge that the work that is in the report is a reflection of commitment and leadership at all levels at the city, and is also the result of the ongoing work of community partners and allies that are supporting us on this journey. I hope that you have all had the opportunity to read the DEI updates report that was made available to the public last week. For my presentation, I have chosen to take you through a specific example of inclusion in action by highlighting an important program that we've been hosting at the city. This program is Project Search, a unique school-to-work training program that empowers youth with disabilities to achieve their employment goals. I will provide you with a brief overview of the program, including the partnership model, the program structure, and benefits to the city. I will also share some details about the daily activities and our participating city groups, and end by introducing you to the program interns. Pictured here from left to right are our interns, Omar and Serdar, Ethan, and Elizabeth, on the job at the Riverview Park and Zoo, the wastewater treatment plant, and the Sports and Wellness Center, respectively. On this slide, we have a picture from the Project Search media launch last November. Seen in blue polo shirts are the program interns, surrounded by school staff, school board trustees, representatives from our partners, and city staff and mentors. A bit of background on Project Search. It was founded at Cincinnati Children's Hospital in 1996. It is an internationally recognized licensed program for high school students with intellectual and developmental disabilities. It offers transition to work opportunities through a unique workplace immersion model. Over 70% of Project Search graduates worldwide obtain employment following graduation each year, compared to the 26% Canadian employment rate for adults with intellectual disabilities and autism. There are currently 29 Canadian Project Search sites among over 750 sites in 10 countries around the world, and the city is proud to be hosting the first pilot in Peterborough. One of the factors that contributes to the success of this program is a three-way partnership model between an education partner, a business partner, and an employment partner. PBNC Catholic is the education partner and license holder for the program. The Government of Ontario's Ministry of Education is covering the Project Search licensing cost, as it recognizes the gaps for youth with special education needs and the effectiveness of the Project Search model. PBNC Catholic has also hired a full-time teacher and a full-time skills trainer to support the program. PBNC Catholic also serves as the main contact for Project Search HQ. The City of Peterborough is the business partner or host business for the program. We identify and coordinate internship opportunities that offer skills development and are supported by mentors who are city staff. We also provide an on-site classroom and transit passes for the interns. And last but not least, Fleming Muskoka Kawartha's Employment Services is the employment partner who provides ongoing job counseling and employment advice through employment planning meetings with the interns and support with job fairs and job applications. They are also our source for local labor market information. And on the left, we see the logos of all the partners, including Project Search. For our first cohort, we have 6 interns, ages 18 to 21, supported by the 2 full-time school staff that I mentioned earlier. The program is structured around the school year, starting in September and ending in June. The 10-month training program starts with a 4-week orientation in September, where the interns learn about different work environments, go through transit training, and complete other trainings such as WMIS and safe food handling. This initial phase is then followed by 3 10-week internships. The first internship started in October of last year and ended just before the holidays. The second started in January and ended by March break, and the third internship started last week, and they will continue until June. During the program, the interns attend 6 employment planning meetings where they present their learnings to date and share the skills that they hope to build in the coming weeks. These meetings are also attended by myself, their parents or guardians, school staff, city mentors, and employment counselors. And I should also note that the program seeks to involve the parents or guardians as more than just recipients of information. We see them as having an important role at home to support and encourage the interns through the program, and we thank them for it. On the left, we have a diagram of the program structure that I just explained. A quick look at what the interns' daily schedule is like. They start the day in their on-site classroom at 8:30 a.m. with their school staff, working on team building, health and safety, and confidence and self-advocacy. At about 9:30 a.m., they start to head out to take transit to their respective internship locations where they learn and develop different transferable skills with the support of their mentors and school staff. And their last hour of the day is spent back in their classroom where they debrief the day, discuss any challenges, and plan for the next day. On the right, we have a picture of one of the interns cleaning a glass barrier at the zoo. In terms of benefits, through this program, the interns acquire competitive, transferable job skills that are in demand in the local labor market. They gain invaluable workplace soft skills such as communication, teamwork, and problem solving, which are taught daily on site at their placement and in their classroom by their mentors and teachers. And most importantly, interns gain immense independence, confidence, and self-esteem as they transform from interns into valued job seekers and employees. Having said that, we also recognize that this program is about more than just work. While it is mainly about learning the technical skills, for each intern, the program is also about building social and life skills by engaging and communicating with different people, learning about different work environments, building their own schedules, being on time, knowing what to wear, what to say, when to ask for help, and how to advocate for themselves. Just as we all seek to feel a sense of wholesome belonging at work, so do these interns. To name a few of the benefits for the city, as an employer, the city increases its awareness about the needs of employees with disabilities, especially those with invisible disabilities. Research shows that 88% of employees with invisible disabilities choose not to disclose their disability at work to avoid discrimination, stigma, and lack of support. Building a work environment where employees feel included, understood, and supported sets them up for success and increases job performance and satisfaction. It also increases our access to an untapped talent pool. As a workplace, the city becomes more diverse and more reflective and representative of the community it serves. Through the lived and living experiences of those who work and intern at the city, we are better able to recognize how individuals with intersecting identities navigate barriers to employment. Further, diverse teams are more innovative, perform at higher levels, benefit from new ideas and more debate, and make better business decisions. As a service provider, employees engage with inclusion issues more generally and deepen their understanding of disability more specifically. Considering different perspectives helps create more effective solutions. In the community, the city, through this program, is elevating its brand as an inclusion leader. 1/3 of Canadians aged 15 and over identify as people with disabilities. Inclusion work not only contributes to stronger communities through social cohesion, but makes economic sense too, especially when we are better able to understand and respond to the needs of our residents and visitors. The program also directly connects to the City Inclusion Framework and supports City Accessibility Plan. According to the Inclusion Continuum, which is explained in the report, and which uses a 5-level scale to evaluate inclusion work, compliance falls under level 2, which is labeled as reactive. For inclusion work to be meaningful and to produce any transformative change, we must aim to push beyond compliance and achieve at minimum a level 3 or higher, meaning we should be striving to be proactive, progressive, or even model best practices. I want to recognize the city groups that jumped on board to support this program. with this being our pilot year, there were many details and challenges to work out, but they came through as inclusion champions, trusting the process and believing in the power of the outcomes. Those groups are the Riverview Park and Zoo, the Art Gallery of Peterborough, Peterborough Public Library, Cultural Services, Social Services, Children's Services, Peterborough Sports and Wellness Center, Recreation Facilities, People and Culture, Environmental Services, Municipal Law Enforcement Services, Communication Services, the Clerk's Office, Information Technology, and Peterborough Transit for offering transit passes to the interns. We hope that other groups will join us in the second year of the program. The picture on the left is of one of zoo staff with one of our interns. And last but not least, the rock stars of this program, the interns that are showing courage and vulnerability and helping us all learn new ways of being and doing. Pictured from left to right, we have Cameron, Omar, Sadar, Riley, Ethan, and Elizabeth. And not pictured here are Robert Hope and Yvonne Carlton, the amazing teacher and skills trainer that have contributed immensely to the success of these interns. We will be hosting an end of year event in June to celebrate everyone who was involved in the program this year, and we hope that you will join us. To end, and in the spirit of reconciliation, I want to share some learnings from Indigenous peoples as inclusion leaders. The term disability is a deficit-oriented perspective that does not necessarily align with the traditional views of many Indigenous groups. In fact, in many Indigenous languages of Turtle Island, there is no word to describe the concept of disability. When describing a child in Indigenous cultures, there isn't often a discussion about what the child is lacking or what they cannot do because of the understanding that all children are gifts to the community. Instead, people are considered to be given attributes and gifts of difference, and those gifts are a special way to experience the world. Indigenous communities hold gifts of difference in a position of high regard. Individuals are therefore named through ceremony to reflect the gifts that they carry or responsibilities that they hold within community. In this way, children learn from a young age their role within the community as described by what they can do, what their unique gift is, or what teachings they bring to the collective. A further note on language. While there's a preference for person-centered language by using the term person with disability, the term disabled person is sometimes used to highlight the social approach to disability, which recognizes disability as an evolving concept and one that results from the interaction between persons with impairments and their attitudinal and environmental barriers that hinder their full and effective participation in society on an equal basis with others. This approach is grounded in human rights and emphasizes human dignity, respect, and the right to equality. Thank you for your time, and I'd be happy to take any questions related to the presentation or report.
Ms. Ali, thank you very much for your presentation. Any questions of the presenter? I have Councillor Burke, Crowley, and Real. Councillor Burke.
Thank you, Chair Beamer, and through you to Reem. Reem, thank you so much. It's just really nice to hear formally this type of work is happening in the city, and I feel proud that this is happening. The question I had was around the support of some agencies that Councillor Riel and I have had a few meetings with that are very well funded provincially. The employment services agencies, there's one at the Y, as well as Canopy, which is the agency for to support people with developmental challenges. Would they not, if in a different iteration of this, could they be included, or would that be helpful to the program as kind of an off-ramp to this to get continued support?
So through the chair, the Fleming Muskoka Kawarthas Employment Services, they are the main partner at the table at our steering committees, and then they offload the work to some of those agencies that they work closely with. Right now, we have Alternatives as that representative at the table, and we have one of the job counselors there. She's amazing, Lisa Purchase. She's doing direct intake with the interns, and Alternatives has now taken them on as clients. So what happens as part of the program is Lisa is going to continue to monitor and work with the students for 9 months after the program ends. So the interns don't really graduate out of the program. I mean, they end with us at June, but technically they continue with Project Search until March 31st of next year, because Project Search allows us that much time to see or evaluate the success rate of the program. So sticking with the one job counselor really matters for the success of the students.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Burke. I have Councillor Crowley, Reel, and LaChica. Councillor Crowley?
Thank you, Chair. Through you. Thanks, Reem, for coming out. I was at the kickoff for Project Search at the library in, I think it was November, I believe, which was great. And I got to meet all the interns, and they're amazing people. I know the Project Search, for example, deals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Do we have anything for individuals in the community that have physical disabilities? I know I've been sort of liaising with the Shared Dreams for Independent Living guys who are wonderful. And I know that some of them are eager, very eager to do something. Is there anything like that, or would Project Search be able to open something up to allow them an opportunity as well?
Yeah, through the chair, it would be great if that were possible. However, not through this particular program. And the only reason is, or one of the reasons, is that we have to partner with an education partner. So these have to be students in their last year of high school. That's one of the caveats. And the school helps us in identifying these students because they're very familiar with them through the years in high school. We hold a skills assessment day. Our next one is coming up at the end of April for new applicants for next year to come forward and for them to test their skills and for us to assess who might be best suited for the program. So that's the caveat. But we are aware of other groups in the community that are doing incredible work, and we try to support and connect with them as much as possible. But this particular program has very specific rules and regulations around it that we must abide by.
That's perfect. Well, thank you again. I appreciate it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Crowley. Councillor Reel.
Through the chair to Reem, thank you very much for being here. How are you partnering with, and I'm going to build off of what Councillor Burke had to say, with people with disabilities, our accessibility committee here with the City of Peterborough, Canopy, Ontario Autism. How are you partnering with all of them with this program? Because there's all these agencies that are working, my words, maybe in silos, but have we reached out to these people for this program? Or is that what Sanford Fleming, the person at Sanford Fleming is doing, but just some of the ones that I mentioned, and there's more of them out there that are doing some work. So
yes, through the chair, this is our pilot year, and so we're really kind of building the plane as we were flying it. And again, we were just trusting our partners at the table to bring the right resources to the program. We, as I mentioned, earlier, we do depend heavily on the school and the staff there to let us know what the students need. And assumingly they have sought that kind of support throughout the years with the students there. Being their last year, they seem to be well prepared to enter into the program as is. But this doesn't mean that in our second, third year, we would not be exploring adding more partners around the table. And I think as part of our celebration event, we'd love to include more of those partners so that we can present the program and maybe see if there's an opportunity to replicate some of it around. One of the restrictions is the number of interns that we can take. Project Search encourages anywhere between 6 to 10 interns, but our capacity will only allow us to take 6 for now.
Sally, I mean, what's the cost to the city, barring your cost, your time? What is the cost? What is the city in for this cost for this program?
Through the chair, the cost of the heaviest cost of the program is really the licensing fee, and that's covered by the Ministry of Education. And the renewal fee after that is very minimal. Again, it's going to be covered through the school board. For us, it's mostly in-kind costs. So time spent by staff, the time I spend, for example, coordinating these internships or attending meetings, similar to any other project that I would be administering.
Thank you very much, Councillor Neal. Councillor LaChica.
Thank you very much, Chair Beamer. Through you, I just wanted to say thanks to Reem Ali for being here tonight and bringing forward this foraging presentation. It's just, terrific to have had such a thorough report of all of the education, the different actions and endeavors that we're engaging in on a DEI level here in our city through your leadership. But you took a microscope to one of the very special programs that has been happening in our community. And we work so hard as a council on the physical infrastructure of our city and the things we need to address and build, et cetera. But to hear such a positive report about our social infrastructure and everything we're doing to build that. And this is speaking to our community safety and well-being, and that this is truly an investment that we've made. And just wanted to say, reflecting on all of this and reading the report, it traces back to the last council and prior to this term. The Coalition of Inclusive Municipalities was where a great deal of this work began, and just credit to previous council on bringing this forward, and it continues. And the systems, the knowledge, the people that Reem you've been talking about in the report, those transformative outcomes are really happening, and it's so great to see the evidence of this in the report. Finally, just one comment, it's great to have your this division's input into the code of conduct, additions around language. It feels strengthening with the additives that were in here around, definitions of discrimination and different forms of harassment. Just really invaluable at a time like this when this good work is being done. So just thank you so much, Reem, for all of your work and for all the community building that's happening, and for the team of organizations and partnerships that we saw in the slideshow tonight as well. Thank you for the work around disability that's been happening. Thanks very much, Chair.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Chica. Councillor Baldwin, questions of the presenter?
Good questions, Mr. Chair. Reem, thank you for the report. I did recognize one of the names of the high school staff in your presentation, and I'm wondering how many of those interns, how many schools do they represent, and is the programming done at Holy Cross, the educational piece?
Through the chair, the students come from either St. Pete's or Holy Cross.
Okay. And second question through you, Mr. Chair. The companion board, KPR, are there plans to, in your second iteration of this, expand to the public school?
Through the chair, that would depend if they want to come on board. And if they do and secure a licensing fee as well, we are going to have to really consider whether we want to also be the host business for that, because if the two school boards are on board, that means more interns. It means the schools have to hire more staff. So right now we have 2 full-time staff supporting the 6 interns. If we go up to 8 interns, they will have to hire a 3rd staff. So that's also a cost incurred by the schools. And we would have to take on more interns as well. And I'll admit it's been a challenge to secure internships for the 6 interns. granted that it was our pilot year and our city groups are still getting accustomed to what it is to, support an intern. And I hope that things are going to be much easier next year. But again, securing internships, say for 12 interns rather than 6, could be a challenge. So we'd have to consider that. But I fully support the other school board to take this on should they wish to do that. And one last thing I'll add too, in spreading the word about the program to our community partners, there are many who are interested to take on interns. That would mean that the students would be going through externships rather than internships if we continue to coordinate it. Which is not preferable according to Project Search. They prefer that the host business continues to offer the internships. But with the idea of another program site initiating in Peterborough, it could mean that there are opportunities for those community partners to come on board and offer their own internships.
Thank you for that. All I would say, Mr. Chair, is if you build it, they will come. And thank you for a great start, Ray. Thank you for your presentation this evening.
Thank you very much, Councillor Baldwin. Thank you so much, Reem, for being here and your hard work. Thank you. All right, so we have some recommendations in front of us, moved by Councillor DeGay. Any comments or questions? Sorry, Mayor Leal.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. I really had a very special experience. One of the interns, Ethan, came to my office twice. And I can't say enough about the great work that was done by our divisions within the city of Peterborough that Ethan was involved with to really measure his growth between the 2 meetings in my office, Mr. Chair, was phenomenal. And his a growing appreciation of what is done here in the city of Peterborough was quite something to observe. And I said to him, I said, Ethan, you'd make a pretty good mayor. So it was a very special experience for him to visit me twice, and it reflects on the work that Reem put together, Project Search, to bring partners together for what truly is, for all the interns, a real remarkable experience, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much for that, Mayor Leal. Any further comments or questions? All right, moved by Councillor DeGay. We'll take a vote. And that is carried. All right, 15B, designation of 172, 174 Simcoe Street. Councillor Burke.
Thanks, Chair Beamer. I'll start by just asking staff a question, please. Through you to Mr. Walsh. I thanks so much for doing all this work, preparing all these reports. I know it's a huge task, and I definitely appreciate the opportunity for them to come to council as they have been. I was talking to the property owner for this site, who I know, and he had a question for me that I couldn't answer. One of the points he brought up, and I hope I'm getting it correct, was in his sort of looking at the legislation. An example he brought up was that his building has vinyl windows. And so if the building was designated and he wanted to change out those vinyl windows, would he be required to put in wood windows as were with the original building, or would those vinyl windows be sort of grandfathered in?
Through the chair to the councillor, no, with vinyl windows in place now, there's no requirement to replace them with vinyl windows. And under the legislation, we as city staff would not be able to request that unless we were offering financial assistance.
Really good to know. Thank you. And I was really hoping for Councillor Hakey to be here tonight for this one. But I'm just going to sort of relay the best that I can my conversation with the property owner. This is a person who was born and raised in Peterborough, and he's not a developer per se. He's an entrepreneur, and he runs some pretty interesting businesses out of this building, which is the old Purple Rooster, as I grew up with it being the bar, the Purple Rooster. And he's just, as a property owner and an entrepreneur, he's just very concerned with the implications of us designating this building. He is against the designation. And in the conversation that I had, he pled a pretty good case to me in terms of how he has been maintaining the building for a long time. This is not a developer that's coming in and taking advantage of a derelict historical property. He's been maintaining it, and he's really nervous about the implications of designating this site against his will. And I sort of told him that I would relay that to the rest of you tonight, to maybe save him the trip to come here tonight and next week. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. I do need a mover just for discussion. Moved by Councillor Burke. Thank you, Councillor Burke. Councillor Reel?
Chair to Mr. Walt, can you give us some comfort here about exactly what the Heritage Act is? Because we're designating buildings here, trying to keep the heritage in the downtown. Now we're getting letters from the owner saying, I don't want to designate my building. Well, if we continue down this path and not designate any of the buildings downtown, we don't have any history. We don't have any designated buildings. Everything will be raised. So can you give me some comfort level here? Can you give me the Coles Notes version exactly what the Heritage Act is trying to do and what it is? Because what I'm hearing from Councillor Burke is the owner of this building here is afraid that he's going to have to do something that he doesn't want to do. And I don't think that that is what the Heritage Act is about. They want to keep the culture of the building, the culture or the heritage features of the building. But it's not put an imposition on the owner of the building that they can't do anything with their building. Can you explain in better terms than I can exactly what we're trying to do here? Because there's going to be more of these coming every week until the end of the year.
Through the chair to Councillor Riel. So the Heritage Act was enacted in 1975, sort of reaction to the movement through the 1950s through 70s of that sort of hatred of all things Victorian almost, and the strong push for modern brutalist architecture. The purpose of the act is to enable municipalities to enact bylaws which protect buildings which they feel are of cultural heritage interest or value. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reel.
Pretty short, but to the point, I guess.
I like it. I like it.
I like it. But I mean, there's one person here, one councillor isn't here tonight because I guess he's sick, and there's, for me, it's like fear mongering. I'm against it because the person owns the building and I'm not going to tell them what to do. Well, there's a responsibility that I see on this council to ensure that the downtown has some heritage features that are kept. Not everybody's saying, well, I own the building, I'm going to tear it down, I'm going to build just a box downtown. There has to be something that's and it is unique. Downtown, the heritage qualities of the downtown have to be preserved, as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you very much, Councillor Reel. Councillor Chica?
Thank you very much, through you, Chair Beamer. Holding this portfolio and caring deeply about the historical integrity and beauty of our city, I just want to speak for the attributes, and in the report it's just so clear. This was a former CP Railway hotel, and then becoming the King George Hotel. It had various incarnations as well. It's Italianate facade. It's a grand building, and it's visually prominent in the Simcoe streetscape, even now in its current incarnation. This is so significant. Stompin' Tom Connor's got his moniker here. We see things in Omimi that acknowledge Neil Young on the side of it. These are things to preserve. And even though, all due respect to my fellow councillor Burke, I just really feel that we need to think beyond. Historical significance is thinking beyond who owns this building right here today. It's about this community and what this community values in terms of, structures that have significant cultural and historical significance based on the Ontario Heritage Act. And I think we need to start thinking that way and use the time that we have to recognize and acknowledge the buildings that are prominent, as this Simcoe Street building is, and significant. I mean, again, a great deal of research has gone into the criteria for its historical significance. We've also debunked any issue around windows, that they do not need to be replaced with wooden windows that would be more expensive. And that was the one argument that the owner had raised. So, you know, I think if we look at all these factors and we think of the community valuing this particular building and the evidence that we have that it has this kind of historical significance, we need to be supporting these kind of presentations for designation. So I am fully in support. If the owner still is not happy, there's an opportunity with the process in the Heritage Act to appeal it and or to even speak to it at council. But we're only in the first step. So I'd like to support this motion and thank the PACAC committee for having done all this work. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cheek. Any further comments or questions? Moved by Councillor Burke. We'll take a vote. And that is lost. All right, our last item, 16A, contract extension for Selwyn Link bus service. Mayor Leo.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. I'll move the recommendation. I will also note that Mr. Flack, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, on March the 30th, introduced another piece of legislation to the Ontario legislature called Building Homes and Improving Transportation Infrastructure Act. And part of that, Mr. Chair, will be to put more funding into the opportunities for transit hubs like the city of Peterborough to provide services to areas beyond our borders, similar to what is offered here by Selwyn. And secondly, Mr. Chair, it's not as we move forward with Alto and we build our Alto station in the southeast quarter of the city of Peterborough, it would be that would become a transit hub, and many of these surrounding communities, you know, you think of Norwood, Havelock, Apsley, etc. They probably could take advantage of a transit hub and bring their folks to Alto, so it becomes a win-win-win for everybody in this great region.
Thank you very much for that, Mayor Leal. Moved by Mayor Leal. Speakers, Councillor Real.
Through the chair to Mr. Simonoski, when you were doing the quote here for Selwyn, did you take into consideration the gas prices that just went up? I see that there is a little bit of a window of $4,000 that could be, you know, leveraged from here. But I mean, the gas prices have gone through the roof. So when you quoted this, and I don't know when you did it, did you think about what the gas prices were going to be?
Through Mr. Chair, I would suspect that the prices have changed quite radically in the last few weeks. So I don't know if it's going to be as accurate as we would anticipate. However, depending on global conditions, those prices may hopefully stabilize in the next few months and we see a rebound.
That's not giving me a lot of comfort. My second question is, and I could be wrong, but I believe ETU is in a position contract this summer. Was anything put in here of what that contract might be? Because I see every year there's going to be 2% increase. So what happens if the union contract is 3%? Who makes up the difference?
Through Mr. Chair, I think it's fair to say that when we do these renewals, that we will look at all actual costs, including fuel and labor costs. the rate, and I'm happy to review the contract with staff and with Selwyn, because if the rates are requiring an increase bigger than 2%, we should be recovering that. The intention that this is a zero cost program for the city and providing the benefits that it does to the economic access to both the remote communities in the city. So hopefully we'll capture all of those elements, and every year we have a review.
Oh, you're giving me some comfort here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Reel, for that. Further comments or questions? Mayor Leal for a second time.
In the report where it says of significance 2017, when the province introduced a community transportation grant for rural communities.
Thank you, Mayor Leal. Further comments or questions? Moved by Mayor Leal, we'll take a vote. Oh, sorry, Don. Well, I didn't see your hand.
No,
Councillor Vassiliadis.
I'm certainly in support of this route, and it does say that there should be no financial burden to Peterborough taxpayers and everything, but there's 16,000 passenger trips in 2025 alone, so that demonstrates, it is growing in demand. Doesn't seem like a lot, but I guess the only payback we might get to is an increased ridership. That you look at when you look at the provincial gas tax allocations, that we could benefit there. So maybe there's a little bit of savings there, or maybe there's extra money there, but it does add to our overall rides per year. Thanks.
Any further comments or questions? Well, just quickly, just a kudos to Councillor Vassiliadis. I believe this was brought forth last term, and I know one of the concerns was, will there be a cost to the property taxpayers, which was a very legitimate concern. Many of us, if not all of us, brought up, and Councillor Vassiliadis, who's been a champion of transit in many other areas in the community, assured us that he knows what's going on, and that would not be the case. So kudos, Councillor Vassiliadis, to ensure this has been not a cost to the property taxpayers and has been beneficial in a lot of other ways. So we will take a vote. And that is carried. We have no notice of motions. Other business. Councillor Purnell, other business.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to acknowledge that we're heading into the week of Earth Day, which is actually Wednesday, April 22nd, but people have already been out there doing good deeds throughout the community. I wanted to announce that my 16th or 17th South End cleanup is coming up on Sunday, the 19th. We're going to start on Cameron Street Tot Lot and work our way through the neighborhood. Kenner Collegiate students, they are going to be out on Earth Day cleaning up the trail for us, which we really appreciate. Just through discussions in the community, I know citizens have cleaned up Newhall Beach, and they've cleaned up, I saw a woman today cleaning up the trail on McDonald Street. Just really appreciate the help, because usually I clean up that section. So it was really nice to see somebody out there helping out. I really appreciate it. And of course, to the Ashburn Memorial Stewardship Group. Every year they do a fantastic job, more than once a year as well. To anybody who does want to get involved, and if you get a group together and you want to clean up an area of the city, just contact our Public Works Department. We're very happy to provide the necessary supplies. And then, of course, we want to know where this collection ends up, so our Public Works guys can come and clean up those filled bags. So I just want to thank the community so much for helping us with the spring cleanup. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Purnell. Thank you for your leadership and organization over 16 years. So you're a difference maker on many different areas. So thank you. Councillor Reel, and then Duguay, other business. Councillor Reel.
Through the chair, I just want to give kudos to the Ashburnham Memorial Group for Saturday. I was out on the cleanup with them. I think the gates are working, because I didn't see as much garbage as we had to pick up in years gone by. There was garbage, but not near the amount that we have. So I think the gates that we put in, unfortunately, had to put in because of things, are working. There was a good contingency of people out. It was a nice day for it, and certainly the group was there to promote Armour Hill. If you see the renderings of what they would like to do in Armour Hill, it's unbelievable. They've included a couple lookout towers to the north and to the south. and the gardens and all this stuff in the green space. It is really something to behold. If we ever get this built, and certainly probably a 3P model to do it, it will be something to behold. And certainly if you look at Armor Hill, the lift locks, the trail to going to the Canoe Museum, Beavermead, this is all connected all together. It will be really a nice kudo to the city for tourism. And of course, the lift locks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Real, for you and to you and Councillor Baldwin. Councillor DeGay, other business.
Thank you, Chair Beamer. Last week, Kenner Collegiate teacher Elijah Holt brought to City Hall a group from his grade 10 civics class. They met with Mayor Leal, Councillor Parnell, and myself, and I extend my gratitude to Mayor Leal for making me official Kennerite, at least for the purposes of that meeting. But to my colleagues and to Mr. Holt, the students, their presentation was amazing. They described to us in their summary 10 matters, the 10 things that are of greatest concern to these students. And it was interesting and revealing that the concerns that they have as our future leaders align with national issues. They spoke about food security, about job opportunities, about housing, safe housing. And Councillor Vasiliadis, you'd be pleased to know they also spoke about public transit and busing. I believe that presentation will be made available to council. It's something that I think should be shared, but to Elijah Holt and his class, as not a Kenner graduate, but nonetheless as a city councillor, they need to be commended. Their presentation was impressive and encouraging. So if they happen to be listening, their parents, their teachers, thank you very, very much for a very encouraging and impressive presentation.
Thank you very much, Councillor DeGay. Other business, Councillor Chica.
Thank you very much, Chair Beamer. We've got a bit of a list today, so thanks. I won't be long. I just wanted to thank Councillor Parnell for raising Earth Day as something that is on the horizon for us in the coming days, and also our partnership with Clean Up Peterborough. We have a significant partnership with this organization and with Steve Paul at the lead. He's also on the Ashburn Memorial Stewardship Group. There are so many events, and there is mapping that's on our city website about groups that are organizing cleanups. And kudos to Friends of Jackson Park, who are out for sure biannually doing big cleanups. So thank you for that reminder, Councillor Parnell. And to check out the maps about the cleanups, where they're happening and who's doing them, so that we can strategize the cleanup, the litter action plan that we have going with the city of Peterborough. Just finally, I just wanted to say I'm excited to be here in Ottawa. That's why I can't be with you. With Shelley Knott, our Indigenous lead at the city of Peterborough. Shelley, myself, and Lori Talling, our economic development staff person, recently joined the economic development team here at the city. We're attending Indigenous-led economy, economic reconciliation in 2026 here in Ottawa. We look forward to some rich presentations that will help guide our work in economic development with an Indigenous leadership lens, and I look forward to coming back and sharing some of the good things that are happening. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Chica. Motion to adjourn, Councillor Crowley. We'll take a vote. And that is carried. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, staff. Bye-bye.